Hello, my name is Jess Hartwell, and I co-own and run Skyskins, a traditional wool-on tannery and luxury sheepskins and home accessories business here on the Isle of Skye. We're delighted to be sponsors of the On Farm podcast, and I'd love to take this opportunity to see if you may be able to help us. Here at Skyskins, we are proud of our tread lightly ethos, and we take the utmost care of the environment throughout every stage of our sheepskin tanning and sales journey. In line with this ethos, we are looking for crofters, breeders and farmers who breed native, rare or heritage breed sheep to supply us with raw skins for our tannery. It means that we can then handcraft fully traceable sheepskins, as well as support producers by putting value back into the sheep farming process. To find out more about joining our supplier network, visit our website skyskins.co.uk or give us a call on 01470 592 237. And of course, you can also browse and shop our sheepskins and accessories, which make beautiful gifts for your home, weddings, birthdays and more at skyskins.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to the On Farm podcast. It's Anna here with you this week. Recently I've become much more interested in nutrition, and so this week they will introduce themselves, but I'm talking to two highly qualified and decorated nutritionists who are definitely giving us some information that I didn't already know. So sit back and relax, and I can guarantee that you will learn something.
My name is Dr. Laura Winus and I am a registered nutritionist.
My name is Suzanne Fletcher and I'm a registered nutritionist and the founder of Nutrition Scotland.
What I'd love to talk to you both about is your work on the Eatwell Scotland Guide. Laura, I'd love to talk to you about your book that you've written and why and who it's benefiting. But maybe to kick us off, Laura, can you maybe start and tell us a bit more about how you got to where you are in terms of your career and what you spend most of your time doing these days?
Gosh, well, yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in food and grew up on a farm in Aberdeenshire. So luckily I have a fairly good understanding of how food is produced. And my initial job was working in academia. And I did my degrees up in Aberdeen University in public health nutrition, went into academic research, and then I've had a few different jobs in nutrition policy and working in food innovation, new product development, and working on health and nutrition policy as well. And it was all like great experience. But about 8 years ago, I went freelance and do a variety of work now as a freelance nutritionist, doing one-to-one nutrition consultations, giving dietary advice, and also nutrition writing and workplace wellness talks to try and get the healthy eating message across to workplaces. So a lot of basically nutrition research and communications and helping just kind of communicate the science in a really practical way that people understand and know what to eat and feel confident to know what is right for them, because everyone's so unique in terms of diet, and nutrition is a science, so it can be quite complex, and there's lots of different messages available on the internet as soon as you start Googling things. So I love to clarify that.
In that case, I'm fairly certain that you're going to be able to answer all my questions, because I think, yeah, that there is so much sometimes conflicting information online when you start to try and investigate a more healthy eating lifestyle, and it's not always easy to know which is the right path to take. So definitely we'll cover that. Suzanne, I suppose same question to you, actually, if that's okay. You know, how did you end up where you are? How did you meet Laura? And what do you do, on an average day, if there even is one?
Oh, is there an average day? Well, that's what I like about my job, is that I don't seem to have an average day. It's very varied. I got into studying nutrition a little bit later on in my life after having children who had food sensitivity. So that kind of sparked an interest for me, and I found that there wasn't the practical help available that I was looking for. So that led to me researching myself and then thinking I'd like to start my own business that was centered around providing practical support. And so I studied nutrition. I worked for in the third sector, really enjoyed working in the third sector for charities and connecting with communities. I also worked in research briefly after I'd completed my master's, but it was really third sector and working in communities that I enjoyed. And whilst I was doing that, I was put on secondment to the NHS and started setting up Nutrition Scotland whilst I was there, and eventually took the leap and thought, I'm just going to have to focus on Nutrition Scotland. And that was the point that I met Laura. Maybe it was social media. It's quite a number of years ago now since we connected, and I really can't remember how that connection was made, but we had a real shared passion around nutrition, and we talked about ways that we could work together. So essentially, Nutrition Scotland is a social enterprise, and we focus on training and skills development. And really, like I say, it comes back to providing practical support in various ways. So we work within communities, but our focus is really on trying to reduce health inequalities, diet-related health inequalities, and improving health overall.
And so I know that fairly recently you've been working together on the Eatwell Scotland Guide. Laura, can you tell me a bit more about what that is and how it came into being? Then we can maybe go on and talk about what it's aiming to achieve and how or if we should all be engaging with it in some way.
You might have heard of the UK's Eatwell Guide before. So that's the kind of, it looks like a circle with different proportions of different types of foods that fit into a healthy and balanced diet. It was basically it was a few years ago now, I was watching a webinar for nutritionists on the UK's Eatwell Guide and how it's communicated. And the conclusion was, or the discussion was all about how it's not communicated that well. And there's lots of different versions now of the UK Eatwell Guide. There's this South Asian Eatwell Guide. There's a African Caribbean version. There's a vegan version. And it kind of got me thinking, why is there not a Scottish version of the Eatwell Guide? So luckily I was, one of my roles a few years ago was a regional food tourism ambassador with Scotland Food and Drink, and we were given kind of free rein to do a project. So I thought that's a great opportunity for me to take forward this idea and actually develop the Scottish Eatwell Guide. I also thought, right, this is going to take more than just me. So I contacted Suzanne, and luckily she was very keen to get involved. So both of us kind of developed the Scottish Eatwell Guide, which was quite a challenge, I have to say. It went through quite a few different versions of it until we got the right food items in each proportion of the circle, if you like, and the right wording. But hopefully it's to basically show how what we eat in Scotland or what we produce in Scotland fits into a healthy and balanced diet, and kind of showcase Scotland's natural larder in a healthy way.
Suzanne, why was it fundamentally different to the English one? What are those uniquenesses about Scotland and its produce and its diet and its people?
There's quite a few differences between the UK and the Scottish Eatwell Guide. I mean, fundamentally, it's the same messages, eating in the same proportions, the main food groups. I think what we found difficult was, as nutritionists and looking at the food industry, often the two don't connect very well. And so we felt like we were walking this line. We had to walk a tight line between health interests and the interests of the food industry. So obviously, as nutritionists, we really want to focus on foods that provide good nutrition. Having said that, there's always a place for foods that aren't necessarily the most nutritious, might also, to the contrary, cause health problems when eaten in excess and in the long term. So, but we don't want to exclude those. And there is a place on the UK Eatwell Guide as well as the Scottish Eatwell Guide for some of these foods to sit. they're also an important part of the diet, for our mental health, for social, emotional. We don't want to exclude foods that we might consider, not the healthiest. So for us, it was treading that tight line between health and the food industry. And there was quite a little bit of toing and froing over some of these and deciding how are we going to bring them in. We ended up adding in an extra section. In the UK Eatwell guide, there's a section that sits outside of the main circle. So what we say is within the Eatwell guide, you have the 5 food groups, which are the carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, proteins, dairy alternatives, and oils and spreads. So these foods are essential for health. We need a variety of foods from each of these food groups. Whereas the foods that sit outside of the circle on both the Scottish and the UK Eatwell guides are foods that we don't necessarily need to survive, but they do form part of this healthy, balanced diet that we talk about. So within the UK Eatwell guide, we have a section which says eat less often and in smaller amounts. We also have that in the Scottish Eatwell guide, but we also created an extra section, which was the enjoy occasionally section. So these foods are culturally very important within Scotland, and they do provide some nutrition as well. So in huge amounts, they might also not be ideal for health, but it was really important to get these in because, culturally, they're incredibly important.
I suppose it's about going back, the sort of thing that our parents' generation would have probably talked about, which is a balanced diet, and we all know that as soon as you start to deprive yourself of something, that's when you want it more. So I suppose that's really an extension of that, is to say that, yes, there are foods that aren't primarily nutritious, but that we don't want to completely deprive ourselves of them because it might be part of our enjoyment or our culture. But we need to be aware of moderation, I suppose. Is that really the point, do you think?
Absolutely, yes. The Eatwell guide is both Scottish and the UK is generally used by healthcare professionals as a tool to educate people around what a healthy diet looks like. We don't expect that every plate forms, each of these nutrients exists within each plate of food that we eat. So it's really looking at your general diet over the course of a period of time. And exactly like you say, the old saying, everything in moderation is very important, because if we were to say to people, you should, don't eat this, don't eat that, they're not healthy for you. People don't listen to those messages. They are important. They're important, like we say, emotionally, culturally. We enjoy these foods, and there's no harm in enjoying them in moderation, as long as we're incorporating all these other wonderful variety of foods.
It makes logical sense to me as well, and I'm not a nutritionist, but it makes a lot of sense. Laura, coming back to the collaboration and the project and setting it apart from the English version or elsewhere in the UK, what key observations did you make throughout the process? What really stuck in your mind? And I suppose, what should people like me, as ordinary people or listeners of this podcast, what are the key takeaways as far as we are concerned, do you think?
Gosh, we went through a number of iterations of when we were developing it, and the feedback we were receiving gave us quite a good insight to how people perceive the Scottish diet, I suppose. And I remember one of the comments was a few people commented on the variety of fruits and vegetables that are produced in Scotland. And I think we maybe forget about just how many different foods we grow here. For example, that like butternut squash, and we all probably know about that the berries are quite a Scottish thing, but the soft fruit as well, and the root vegetables, which, all these fruits and veg are something that as nutritionists, we're constantly trying to encourage people to eat more fruits and vegetables and plant foods to increase fiber. I mean, fiber in the diet is just not talked about, but less than 10% of the population achieve the fiber recommendations of 30 grams a day. So we've got a way to go in terms of up in our fibre, and we've got so many varieties of fruits and vegetables here that provide fibre-rich foods for gut health, which is key in so many things for mental health and reducing risk of disease. If you can have a variety of fruits and veg in your diet, that's so beneficial. So
10% of people eat enough fibre in their diet. That's shocking, isn't it? That's really shocking. So as well as fruits and veg, what else should we be eating to provide that fibre? Nuts and seeds?
Well, actually, that was the other challenging section probably of the Scottish Eatwell Guide, was the protein section, because in the kind of UK version, in terms of protein, and as nutritionists as well, we're encouraging more plant proteins, which is good for health. And of course, there's lentils and chickpeas and soya in the UK version. So protein was a challenge because, of course, in Scotland we have high quality Scotch beef and lamb and pork, and we've got venison, which is a great protein source, especially rich in iron as well. And obviously seafood. It was quite a challenge picking what seafood to include. In terms of plant proteins in Scotland, there is limited choices, but we do grow really well fava beans in Scotland, which I hope, as nutritionists, we hope to see more of being grown throughout Scotland.
My husband grows those.
Oh, really?
Actually.
Brilliant.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, they are really, a great protein source and good for the environment as well.
It sounds as though one of the most crucial parts of this whole jigsaw is in terms of education and awareness. I imagine, but I could be wrong, that most of the 90% who don't eat enough fibre are blissfully unaware of this fact. What is the process that's gone on with the Eatwell Guide? I mean, obviously, coming on podcasts like this is part of the strategy. But what's been the process for the Eatwell Guide to try and just raise awareness and get more people to kind of understand how this circle operates and how they could improve their diet, even just by small increments?
Yeah, well, that is our aim now, to just communicate it as widely as possible. And the feedback we've been getting, it's free to download, actually, that you can get your own version of the Scottish Eatwell Guide, download it for free from this Nutrition Scotland website. And it's been used a lot by teachers in the classroom. It's great for stimulating discussion on, what is a healthy diet and what do we grow here, and understanding what we grow and how it's grown, and also stimulating discussion about sustainable eating and connecting more with the food that we eat as well. I think it's been a really useful tool. It's got so many uses, as well as, visitors to Scotland wanting, food is what everyone talks about when they visit somewhere.
Yeah,
so
of course.
having something like the Scottish Eatwell Guide in hospitality locations or wherever you get food, people want to know the provenance of what they're eating and where it's from, and the fact that you can eat healthily when you're visiting Scotland or going around Scotland.
I do think, yes. I mean, I've been involved in the food and farming sector for too long, actually. But I do think that the tourism offering has improved a huge amount. From a practical point of view, then, if we were to go, and we can put a link into the show notes so that people can find it, if we were to go to Nutrition Scotland and we were to download a copy of this, which I'm definitely going to do because I'm incredibly interested, how then do we kind of act upon that? I'm a great one, actually, to give you an example. I'm a great one for an app. I do love an app, so I love to take note of things and record things. But I have this one particular app, and I just noticed yesterday, actually, I had lentils for lunch, and I thought, well, that's great. I'm doing great things. And when I looked in the app, it told me that I'd now eaten too many carbohydrates, and I thought I was doing a good thing there by eating lentils. And so the app is kind of telling me one thing, and then I maybe see somebody on Instagram and they're telling me something completely different, and then something else crops up on a news app and it tells me that I'm not eating enough protein. Even if we've got a copy of this, how do we, in a practical sense, use it to improve our diets on a day-to-day basis? And how do we keep a track of that and know if we're actually making a difference?
Well, the UK Eatwell guide used to be called the Eatwell plate. So I think there was a lot of confusion that came in there, and it had a knife and a fork at the side of it. And people used to think that's, like I said, what each plate should look like. But it is looking at your diet very broadly, very generally off over, let's say a week or 2 weeks. So there are things about the diet in general that we can pretty safely reduce, and others that we can pretty safely increase, like the amount of salt and sugar in our diet, and saturated fats in our diet are generally too high. Things like fiber, whole grain foods, fruits and vegetables. These are things that are generally very low in the population diet. And this is what it looks at. It's looking at a population diet. And I guess that's where the danger comes in, and something that we're constantly fighting is things that come across on social media that can lead to trends, or people cutting out whole food groups and going with fad diets. The message is always pretty boring and simple that we always come across with is this healthy, balanced diet, getting as much variety in your diet as possible in terms of fruits and vegetables. Get as much variety, and that means as much color. We always say to children, eat a rainbow, for example, because each of those fruits and vegetables, all those different colors, represent different vitamins and minerals. And there's loads of fiber and other plant compounds in these foods that are really excellent for health. So the more of these that we can pack into our diet, the better. Incorporate more plant-based foods into our diet is quite a good message.
Yeah, I think from a practical point of view, for a meal, roughly speaking, half your meal should be fruit and veg based, and then a quarter or a fist-sized portion of starchy, good quality carbohydrates, and about a quarter or a fist-sized portion of protein, roughly speaking, in a meal. And that gives you a good balance of different nutrients. Doesn't have to be completely exact, but that's a good kind of visual to aim for.
I'm just thinking about what I had for supper last night. The vegetables were definitely there, but not in the proportion that you describe. And I should think many people are the same. So it's again, and it probably also, it's not about an overnight a victory. It's about making incremental changes and adding more and more of those vegetables. And tell me, Laura, does the same apply, whether you're somebody who's just looking to maintain weight, or whether perhaps you're somebody who's looking to lose weight? Does the same apply in terms of that balance and the different food groups, and making sure that you are still eating from within all of those food groups?
I mean, everyone's different, so it depends on what your goals are, but it's a good starting point. For losing weight, sometimes I would say possibly reduce the starchy carbohydrates a bit more, and focus more on the getting enough protein on your plate, and lots of different vegetables and fiber-rich foods, because that helps make you feel fuller for longer, and it helps with weight management. One of the approaches I also use a lot with my clients is mindful eating, which, rather than giving a prescriptive diet or taking a diet off the shelf type of thing, it's working with being more mindful of what you eat and what signs your body's telling you, and recognizing the different types of hunger you might be feeling, or how hungry are you, and not finishing a meal when you feel full rather than just finishing it because it's on your plate. So recognizing your different signals that your what it's trying to tell you, and working with that and responding to it in a way that you kind of eat a diet that's tailored specifically for your needs, because your needs on different days will be different. I like giving people more confidence in what they're eating, and figuring out what their body needs as an individual.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. Before we come back to you, Laura, to talk about your book, Suzanne, can I maybe ask you this question? If we've got a copy of the Eatwell Guide in front of us, and we're making efforts to follow that as closely as possible and eating a balanced, healthy diet, what's your view then on supplements and adding to that through sort of non-food sources? Do you believe there is a place for that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is a place for supplements, but generally speaking, we would hope that you can get most of the vitamins and minerals that you need from a healthy, balanced diet, with the exception of vitamin D, which is why we've added that to the Scottish Eatwell guide. It's not on the UK guide, but it is in Scotland. Basically, we make most of our vitamin D from the sunshine, and given the terrible summer that we're having at the moment, we'll know that can be an issue in Scotland. And you can actually only make the vitamin D during certain months when the sun is strong enough. So in Scotland, we recommend that you take a supplement year round. You can get vitamin D from things like mushrooms, eggs, oily fish, and fortified products as well. But the main source is the sun. So we have added it in there. And that's children and adults that we would recommend take that supplement year round. In terms of other supplements, then medically there might be a reason for somebody to take supplements, but generally speaking, as nutritionists, we would hope that you can get it from a healthy, balanced diet, but obviously everybody doesn't eat like that, so there will be situations where supplementation is helpful.
So yeah, Laura, one of the other reasons that we wanted to talk to you for the podcast today is because you have written a book, and I would love for you, please, to tell me a bit more about it and why you've written it, because it's quite niche. As people will discover, it's maybe not relevant to every single one of our listeners, but I think it should be interesting for every single one of our listeners.
Yeah, thank you. And it's definitely a topic that should be discussed a lot more.
Yes, I agree.
So Eating Well for Menopause is the book that I've written along with a fellow registered nutritionist, Lynn Burns. And it was basically because I was getting a lot of one-to-one clients, women who were asking questions on, what can I eat to help with menopausal symptoms, to help with hot flushes or help with sleep, or how can I eat well to maintain health, in terms of bone health and heart health and get rid of this brain fog or, other symptoms. So this was about 5 or 6 years ago now. And I realized when I started to research it, there wasn't a lot of information available on what to eat or nutrition in menopause. And this was before the Davina McCall program as well. So since it's kind of, escalated and more people are talking about it, thankfully. But yeah, there are lots of things you can do in terms of small dietary changes to help manage symptoms better and maintain health, because your body's going through a lot of change through the menopause transition. So making sure that your base diet is supporting you through that change is so key for managing it and having a smoother menopause transition.
And is it mostly about adding extra things to the diet, or is it about removing certain things from the diet? And what would be the key sort of 2 or 3 bullet points that you might say, actually, this, I know that, you can't have a consultation with everybody that's listening to this podcast, but that just in general pointers in terms of what might be beneficial.
It's actually similar advice to the Eatwell guide. It's kind of a mainly plant-based diet, lots of fiber-rich foods, because that really supports your gut microbiome, and your gut microbiome helps create or make all these neurotransmitters, which helps with brain function. So mood and mental health is so key during menopause, but also it helps with sleep. It helps create hormones like melatonin, the sleep hormone, and serotonin, the kind of happy hormone, if you like. So if you nourish your gut microbiome, then it can have a really positive knock-on impact for managing many of the variety of different menopausal symptoms. So more plant foods, more fiber. Protein's really key as well for supporting muscle. As you get older, muscle and bone strength starts to deteriorate quite rapidly during the menopause transition. So making sure you get lots of protein at every meal, space and protein throughout the day. And gosh, what would be another one? Thinking about heart health in particular, I think that often we think of heart health as a man's disease, but I would definitely encourage women of, late 30s, early 40s, in their 50s to check cholesterol levels, because a lot of women, especially just that 1 year after you hit menopause, you can have a quite a spike in your cholesterol levels. So around 77% of women of menopausal age have high cholesterol, which I think is just something that's not known about at all. So, and you don't really know if you've got high cholesterol without having a blood test. And it's a fairly simple blood test that you can get through your GP, or a finger prick test to find out. And there's lots of dietary changes as well that can really help bring down cholesterol levels.
Yeah. I think two questions that have kind of emerged from that from me, if that's okay. As far as fibre intake is concerned, what's your go-to on an average day? You know, what would you be eating that you'd be consciously aware, right, this is adding to my fibre today?
Well, a variety of vegetables and fruit, definitely, and also whole grains. So we love oats in Scotland. So oats and barley they have a particular type of fibre, a soluble fibre, beta glucan, which helps lower cholesterol levels. So having some oats and barley daily is a really good habit to get into. So whether that's overnight oats, or a risotto made with barley, or add in barley or to stews or salads, that would be good.
Perfect. Thank you. Brilliant answer. This is coming from a complete carnivore. So when I think protein, I think chicken breast or steak. But when you're thinking about balancing that with more plant-based protein, what would be your go-to for plant-based protein to add into that mix?
So for plant-based protein, well, chickpeas, lentils, beans, fava beans in particular, if you can source them.
We'll go and raid the shed.
Yeah, they're all really good plant sources of protein. And I suppose, well, soya is particularly important, or can be, during menopause transition as well, because the soya has isoflavones, or phytoestrogens, which are plant estrogens, which can help with hot flushes in some women. So having soya milk or yogurt, or a tofu sometimes can taste quite nice if you add lots of herbs and spices, because a lot of people are put off by tofu. But I've put a few recipes on using tofu in the book as well, because I wanted to make it practical. But also, you don't have to cut out meat completely. You can make a meat dish, but add lentils to it as well. So kind of half and half, beef mince with lentils, or bulk up with veg. There's actually a recipe in the book for lamb tagine, which obviously has lamb in it, but because it's bulked up with lots of vegetables, it's actually low in fat and low in saturates, so, and high in fibre and protein. Yummy. So it's a nicely balanced meal. So you can definitely have meat in the diet, along with plant proteins and lots of veg.
Right. Well, lamb is one of my favourites, so I'm definitely gonna look that one up. And what we'll also do, Laura, is we'll put the full title of the book into the show notes, and you can also tell us at the end, so people to get it. But can they buy the book online? Presumably they can.
Yep, it's on all good online and high street stores.
Excellent. And Laura Wyness, so it's spelled Wynes if you are Googling it, but that's how you go about buying a copy. So Suzanne, bringing you back into the conversation, interesting to note, we've talked about us as consumers and hints and tips, what to eat, how to improve nutrition, eat the balanced diet, look at all the different food groups. What about looking at it from the other side then, as for food producers? Is there any knowledge that you have gained as a result of your careers, or as a result of doing the Eatwell Scotland guide, that has led you to think, actually, perhaps there are changes that farming could make here, or innovations that food producers could look to that actually would have a positive impact on nutrition for the rest of us? And I know that's not necessarily an easy question, but Laura, as a farmer's daughter, I might come to you to answer that first.
Gosh, what a question. I suppose as a nutritionist, I'd love to see more pulses, if possible, grown in Scotland. So fields of fava beans, or any other beans that could be grown in our climate. Yes, red meat that we produce here. I think we've got such a great climate in Scotland for producing good quality meat, and meat that can be produced sustainably. Maybe there needs to be better communication on just how we do that, and the methods of farming that we have in Scotland, and the land in Scotland, makes it a lot easier to farm in a sustainable way. So maybe it's just better communication to consumers of how the food is produced and the work that farmers do to farm in a sustainable way, and all the positives that farmers do to, we always talk about carbon emissions, but there's a lot of positive changes that farms can do in terms of carbon emissions or the impact on the environment in terms of biodiversity and, green energy, changing the feed of animals to, make them better for the environment type of thing.
Yes, so well, that's a good example, because we've done an episode on that before, actually, about up in your neck of the woods, actually, Aberdeenshire, and we did an episode with the animal feed company Norvite, who have been replacing soya feed with feed made from rapeseed oil or rapeseed meal, all of which is grown, just a few miles from the processing plant. So again, a sustainable story, but nutritionally just as good for the livestock. So that's a really good point, actually, definitely.
And actually seed oils as well. So rapeseed is, like, we always talk about olive oil being a great oil to use, but actually cold pressed rapeseed oil, or rapeseed oil in general, is such a healthy oil to use. Maybe it's just better communication of the high quality, nutritious foods that we produce here.
Yeah, thank you. Good answer. I like that.
For us, it's important for us to connect with the food producers, and that's part of what we're doing with the Scottish Eatwell Guide. It is about health. It's based on, following the UK Eatwell Guide guidelines. However, it's there to promote the wonderful array of incredible foods that are produced in Scotland. So we want to promote that, and we want to work alongside producers and growers positively and promote the healthy, nutritious foods that are available in Scotland, and encourage people to buy locally. We have the guide up on the Visit Scotland website. They recently put out a guide for food tourism businesses, and this forms part of that. So we hope that food tourism is huge, and we want to lose the negative connotations of the Scottish diet and promote some of these wonderful foods, and that's what visitors are looking for, food experiences as well. And we can bring some of these amazing foods in and show incredible Scottish cuisine. It's real foods that we want to focus on from a practical point of view in our education. These foods are really important for health. We talk about plant-based proteins, but meat proteins also form a really important part of that. Some of the nutrients within meat is more bioavailable to the body, for example, like iron in red meats. You can get iron from plant-based sources as well, of course, but it is more bioavailable. So they are important nutrients to get into your diet as well. And if we look at it from an affordability point of view with some of the communities that we work with, I'd go back to what Laura was saying. Buying quality red meat or quality meats and adding in plant-based sources is a really good way of making sure that you have great nutrition and also keeping it very affordable.
Yeah, we're kind of at the start of the journey of sharing the Scottish Eatwell Guide, and in order to do that more and get it out there, we want to work more with different companies, different producers, and we do have a partner offer for food companies to become a partner of the Scottish Eatwell Guide and help us kind of share the message far and wide.
Oh, great. How do people find out more about that then?
Contact us or go to the Nutrition Scotland website and get in contact with either myself or Suzanne. We can give you more details. We've got a few partners already. So Stockins, Oatcakes and Hamlins of Scotland are one of our first. So we've just literally launched this partner offer. So hopefully we'll get some more food companies on board.
Great. So a few things to Google there. Nutrition Scotland to find out about that partner offer, but also to download the guide. Laura Wyness, you can Google her for her book about nutrition in menopause. And well, I think that's it really. Everything you need to know will be there. So it's been really fascinating. Thank you both, ladies, for sparing time to talk to me today.
Thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you for having us.
As ever, we are, of course, enormously grateful to our episode sponsors. You will have heard a piece from Jess Hartwell at Sky Skins, who had, I know, something to ask you. The other episode sponsor for this week is Gillespie McAndrew, very loyal Gillespie McAndrew Scottish legal firm to whom we are very grateful because they have worked with us at the On Farm podcast for a long time, and they also were enormously helpful to Monty when he was diagnosed with his brain tumour. So thank you again to Gillespie McAndrew. Please do get in touch with them if you have any legal requirements or legal needs. They are really a truly lovely team. So thank you to them. Before I go, just wanted to tell you about something a little bit new from Seen and Heard. As well as this podcast, we do a whole host of other things, but one of those things is designed to fit around current financial climate. I know not everybody has oodles of money to be spending on their PR and marketing and may not wish to work with us on large projects. But if you would like an hour with me on the phone to pick my brains, ask me your PR and marketing questions and to help you form a bit of a strategy for your promotion going forward, then please do have a look at our social media because I'm offering a growth hour where, as I say, you get my undivided attention for an hour and you can ask me anything you like. So have a look at the Seen and Heard social media and you can find out how to book a session. That's it for this week. We are actually going to be taking a break fairly shortly for the school summer holidays, but keep an eye on the feed because we'll be back as soon as possible with more episodes connected to the Royal Highland Agricultural Society and a load of other things. So watch this space. And meantime, let's hope the weather picks up and we all have a fabulous summer.